The WNBA semifinals are here, and the next Minnesota Lynx beat writer Terry Horstman is here to chat all about Game 1. We'll recap Game 1 between the Minnesota Lynx and the Connecticut Sun, talk about what adjustments need to be made in Game 2, his predictions for Game 2, and more. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and happy Monday. You are Locked On to Women's Basketball. I'm Natalie Heavren, and I'm a features writer and the Atlantic 10 beat reporter for The Next. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. If this is your first time listening to Locked On Women's Basketball, welcome. We at The Next have over 100 reported pieces every single month. We have a beat reporter on every single WNBA team, one on more than 15 different NCAA beats, so get that YouTube subscription up. And you can also support us by subscribing to The Next for $9 a month or $72 a year at thenexthoops.com. Today, we'll talk all about the first game between the Minnesota Lynx and the Connecticut Sun, what adjustments need to be made going into Game 2, and our predictions for Game 2 and the rest of the series. Joining me today is Terry Horstman, the next Minnesota Lynx beat writer. So, Terry, Connecticut won 2 of the 3 games against the Lynx in the regular season and won last night 73-70. Was Game 1 what you were expecting with, I believe, 13 or so lead changes?
Hi, Natalie. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. I always love being on Locked On Women's Basketball. I think Game 1 was kind of exactly what we were expecting between these two teams. All 3 games, Connecticut won 2 of the 3 in the regular season. They were all very close, minuscule point differential. So to see that, 13 lead changes and Connecticut just kind of outlasting Minnesota at the end of a, rough and tumble fourth quarter was kind of what I think was on everyone's bingo card. In my preview piece for the series, I quoted Coach Reeve as, thinking it'll be a knockdown, drag-out series, and I think that's exactly what we got in Game 1. And I'd expect more of the same in games 2 through 5. That's hinting at my future predictions. But yeah, I think we'll be seeing the maximum number of games between these two teams, with them all being pretty closely contested, like we saw last night.
Yeah, I definitely watched 4 more games of this series. You were there live. Who shined for each team, or who impressed you the most?
I mean, you got to start with Alyssa Thomas on the Connecticut Sun. What can we say about Alyssa Thomas that hasn't been said already? Though I think the Sun and the Lynx are kind of just both in similar boats, where they've been just overlooked, in sort of the national spotlight. This year in particular, the Sun, I kind of feel like, are always that team where they're just always number 1 or 2 in the league in defense and not getting a ton of shine. And with Thomas being, that star player that kind of holds it all together. But it seems like anytime you watch her play, you just kind of look up and like, oh, yep, that's a triple-double or a near triple-double. And she was an assist away from one last night. She was guarding Fee a lot and did a really good job. Fee still, I think, had a good game, but Thomas really made it hard for her to get good looks, and was just all over the place. But I thought it was a good game by everyone on the Sun, and I know we'll talk more about them. I think Marina Mabrey out shooting the Lynx from the 3-point line by herself is a recipe for the Sun to win. I'm not sure you can win many games if Mabrey is hitting more threes than you're hitting when you're a team that wants to shoot threes. So I think her, just sort of dagger from the logo at the end of a shot clock on a possession where the Lynx played really good defense was a huge pivotal moment of the game that I know we'll get into. But yeah, gotta start with AT. She was, unbelievable as always.
Yeah, and not only was she in near triple-double form, as she so often has been this season, if not, recording a triple-double, she was also 8 of 12 from the floor.
Right.
So shooting efficiently from the floor as well. One other person that I wanted to talk about was Dejanay Carrington, who I believe was the
Mhm.
only player to play all 40 minutes. How important was her defense for the Sun throughout that game?
She was hugely important, and yeah, playing all 40 minutes of a playoff game is always going to be impactful when you can stay on the floor playing as dependably as Dejanay does. She was just kind of flying around. There was a couple moments in the game where it looked like Kayla McBride was going to get it going offensively, where it looked like Courtney Williams was going to get it going offensively, but they had, I'm looking at the box score here, but Courtney was 3 of 12 from the field. K-Mac was 5 of 11, so a little bit better. But part of the problem with those shots not going in is you have Dejanay Carrington on the perimeter, flying around, making life miserable for any offensive players. And she showed that she is very deserving of, that all first team all defense and that most improved player honors that she got. She was absolutely fantastic. And just to be, that strong of a motor for all 40 minutes, like, yeah, she was definitely a problem for the Lynx offensively.
And what do you think a pivotal moment or a turning point was in the game? I thought it was going to be the Courtney Williams 3 to end the third quarter, but I don't think that was it.
Yeah, it felt like that in the arena too. That's certainly the energy was pretty great from the Lynx fans from start to finish. But Courtney hitting that shot with about 3 seconds left in the third quarter. The Lynx have been tremendous in the third quarter all season long. They were again last night, going 24 to 15 against the Sun, and had a 5-point lead going into the fourth. And it had been, big splashy threes were hard to come by for the Lynx in this one. And Courtney Williams is generally not the one shooting a lot of threes, but when she hit that, it kind of felt like, okay, there's the momentum. And then the start of the fourth quarter, I think both teams were scoreless for about the first 2 minutes. It kind of reverted back to that sort of just, punch, counter punch type of defensive mentality. But Marina Mabrey's 3 from, I think the box score said about 31 feet, but it felt like 40 when she put it up at the end of the shot clock on possession where the Lynx did play a great defense, as both the Lynx and the Sun are usually playing great defense. And it just dropped right through the net, and when that shot goes in, it kind of indicates this is Mabrey's night. This may not be Minnesota's night, and the Lynx still had the lead at that point, but offense was really hard to come by for them in the fourth quarter. So that type of just logo 3 splashing through, just you could feel the momentum shift at that time, and it was pretty much all Connecticut the rest of the way. Though it was within a one score game the entire way. So I don't think the Lynx need to freak out too much about it. They were getting the looks that they want, but just weren't getting them to drop. And Mabrey was hitting shots like that. So I think you kind of go, okay, that's a really good player making really good plays. But yeah, I think if you have to isolate one moment as sort of the banner moment for this game, that should be the still on the highlights. It's definitely that logo 3 from Mabrey.
Awesome. Well, what were some of the highlights or notable moments from postgame, aside from Marina Mabrey eating popcorn?
Yeah.
You messaged me that, and I was like, that this is going in the podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you watch the video of the postgame, there's this new sort of an additional like snack and refreshment area at Target Center for the playoffs, which is great. We appreciate having cold drinks and popcorn available for postgame, but it's right next to the table where the players and coaches speak postgame. So after game 1 of the Phoenix series, Natasha Cloud talked, and just I've wrapped it up and grabbed like 2 to 3 boxes of popcorn on the way out, which I'm like, yeah, you just played. I think Cloud played like 38 minutes that game. You deserve all the popcorn you want. But yeah, Mabrey saw it and was just like, yeah, I'm taking this, and then was just casually throwing popcorn in her mouth while answering questions, which is just a vibe that I'm here for. But I think the overall thing to take away is listening to Stephanie White talk and listening to Cheryl Reeve talk. Is you get 2 coaches who have a ton of respect for each other and have certainly coached their teams up, to the point that they can. It's this year's Coach of the Year winner in Reeve versus last year's Coach of the Year winner in White, and they, I think got what they expected out of their team, and just really understand the assignment. Reeve was in, a pretty okay mood. The other two players from the Lynx that we got last night were Bridget Carlton and Kayla McBride, and both weren't, super talkative as you expect after a loss, but both of them, it kind of was what I interpreted from it was just like, we know we just need to make more shots. Like, what we don't really, there's not a lot that needs to be said here. And that was a little bit true, on Connecticut side as well. Both, Thomas and Mabrey were, happy and chipper to get a game one on the road and, take home court advantage away. Now they know that if they win their home games, they get to go to the WNBA finals. But I think it's sort of, both groups were pretty exhausted after an exhausting round one of this fight that I think everyone's either expecting to go 5 or they're fully prepared for it to go 5. So it kind of was like, this was the opening ceremony of a knockdown, drag out, defensive classic between the top two defensive teams in the WNBA. So it seemed like everyone was ready for it, and just, wanting to get out of there and get some rest after those 13, lead changes and, playing heavy minutes for everybody.
Awesome. Well, coming up next, we'll talk about what adjustments need to be made or maybe don't in game 2. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And with Game 1 of the WNBA semifinals in the books and Game 2 coming up tomorrow, there is still plenty of time to bet on the matchups between the Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty, as well as the Connecticut Sun, who are taking on the Minnesota Lynx. This includes the spread, money line, and the over-under. You can also build your own parlay as well as bet on who will win the WNBA championship, the finals MVP, and even looking ahead, you can place a futures bet on who will win the regular season MVP for the 2025 regular season. That's FanDuel.com, and make sure to go check out all the different ways you can bet on the WNBA. Today's episode is brought to you by Magic Spoon. As a kid, I loved eating cereal, and I thought that was the peak of my cereal consumption, but then I found Magic Spoon, a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like my childhood favorites, but without the sugar and with a ton of protein. Every serving of Magic Spoon cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, and there's so many more. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are crispy, crunchy, airy, and an easy way to get 11 grams of protein on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. I love the Magic Spoon treats because of their delicious flavor, crispy texture, and great macros. And I love eating Magic Spoon at every time of day, including as a midnight snack. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/lockedon, or look for Magic Spoon in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/lockedon for $5 off. Magic Spoon, hold on to the dream. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So, Terry, as you kind of alluded to and have talked about in previous podcasts, the Lynx have been one of the best three-point shooting teams this season, but were just 5 of 20 last night. Was it something Connecticut was doing, or were shots just not falling?
I do think it's a little bit of both. And I think first and foremost, it is shots not falling. A lot of the looks that they took are, shots that Reeve and the team, would want them to take, 100 times out of 100. And weren't finding the bottom of the net. So I don't think anything, the game plan needs to be thrown out and, just start over, figure something else out. They were getting a lot of good shots. What I think Connecticut did was they sort of sensed the desperation a little bit and forced the Lynx out of their fluid ball movement. I think when you look at Lynx box scores all year, when you just watch the Lynx, the ball movement pops off the screen and is just phenomenal. They're passing up good shots for great shots all the time, and lead the league in assists and assist percentage by a pretty healthy amount for a reason. Last night on the 27 made shots that the Lynx did have from the field, they only assisted on 16 of them, which isn't, terrible, but it's also not up to the usual metrics that the Lynx have. And I think you could tell Williams, Heidemann, who are handling the ball a lot, there's just a bit more dribbling than you normally see from the Lynx. And I think that's something that happens when, looks aren't falling. They're just, they kind of abandoned the three for a little bit and were, putting up more mid-range shots. Those weren't really dropping either because of what Connecticut was doing. I think it was from about the halfway mark of the second quarter to the halfway mark of the third quarter, sort of that middle 10 minutes there. They held Fee without a field goal. She was getting to the line a decent amount, as she's added to that element to her game. She's very difficult to defend, so naturally she's going to shoot some free throws. But yeah, I think you could see sort of the desperation seep in a way that took the Lynx, sort of out of what they wanted to do. Desperation can be helpful and useful at times, but everything just looked a little bit more erratic. So I don't think that you really need to adjust much. It's just sort of keeping your cool, understanding that what you can do that has worked all season can still work in this series. If just a couple more Kayla McBride 3-pointers go down, or Alana Smith 3-pointers go down, who have been good 3-point shooters this season and their whole careers, basically. We're probably having a different conversation. So I don't think there really needs to be too many adjustments. Both coaches mentioned that in the postgame last night, that at this point, it's not a ton of adjustments. It's two great teams, best on best, and we're going to see who comes out on top. So I do think it's easy to look at the box score and react. And I think it's both. It's shots weren't going down, but Connecticut's also a tremendous team. One of the best defensive teams in WNBA history for a reason. But I do think the Lynx will come out and try to, take some of those same looks. And I'm guessing we'll see more fall in game 2.
One thing I did want to mention in the box score, I know you just said don't read too much into the box score, but the Sun did win the rebounding battle 39-32. Mm-hmm. How do you think that impacted game 1? And what do you think the Lynx need to do to balance the scales in game 2?
Yeah, I think that's not too surprising. The Lynx, are at their best when they're, a solid rebounding team and not allowing a ton of second chance opportunities, but also they haven't been, one of the premier rebounding teams in this league. So I think, you don't want to see that tip too much far in the favor of the Sun, but also the Mabrey 3. I can't believe I missed this detail that came on a second chance opportunity. Bonner missed a shot from mid-range. I think they did a good job on Bonner defensively, but she also had a tremendous game outside of field goals made for attempts. But yeah, and AT got the rebound and they went back to their set. The Lynx kept playing great defense and not giving them any looks, and then the ball eventually found Mabrey for a shot from a mile away, and it went in. So I don't think winning the rebound battle outright is necessarily a criteria for winning this series for the Lynx, but they do need to pick it up and make sure they're limiting those offensive rebound, second chance opportunities, because of the Sun, they're not a lighted up team. They're not going to go out and try to score 100 points per game. But like if Mabrey misses a shot, you don't want to give her another chance to hit another one, because if she didn't make you pay the first time, she probably will the second time. So I do think that did sort of rear its head in the second half there. And yeah, if you're down in that second chance points opportunity category by more than just a few buckets, then that can become a problem. So I don't expect the Lynx to go out and totally own the glass and shut down the Sun's rebounding capabilities. But I do think you need to see that gap shrink a little bit for the Lynx to feel comfortable about where they are.
Awesome. Well, coming up next, we'll talk about our Game 2 predictions. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. I love going to events with my husband, and I'm so excited that Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It was so easy to find the best seats for this week's Sabrina Carpenter concert. I just went to the Game Time Picks and could see super deals, the top 1% in value for the event, meaning I could get seats to the left of the stage at the 200 level for $311, and amazing deals, which are the top 5% in value, and even great deals in the top 10% of value for the event. I love that you can see the view from the seat before you buy the ticket, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So Terry, starting off, who do you think needs to step up or continue to shine for the Lynx in Game 2?
I think you just really everyone just needs to hit a couple more shots. Really, I think they have found a star in the making in Bridget Carleton, one of the better stories of this season. It's kind of fun seeing Carleton and Carrington on the floor at the same time. As Carleton, locally, a lot of people were hoping she'd win Most Improved Player. And I if I had a vote, I probably would have voted for Carrington as well. But unmistakably, just two of the better stories and just patience paying off, overcoming injuries, adversity, all that stuff. So I think Carleton was one of the few who, when she put up a shot last night, you kind of felt good about it, and that you couldn't really say that for the rest of the Lynx, as everything else was just kind of clanging. So getting BC in space, Connecticut will still put a lot of attention on limiting Fee, trying to limit Fee and Courtney in the pick and roll. So that opens things up for BC. And then, I think McBride and Smith got to keep shooting the shots that they shot last night. And you think they'll at least, go down a little bit more. K-Mac was, 1 of 5 from 3. Alana Smith was 0 of 4. You got to think that some of those they're not going to shoot 1 for 9 from there every night. And then we'll see. We'll have to pay some attention to the bench. Last night, Chechi Zandalicini, who doesn't play a ton, but has been a fantastic shooter and depth piece for the Lynx this year. She usually spells McBride or Carleton, was listed as out with a quad, but did dress, clearly was wearing a jersey under the warm-ups, and but didn't play. So I think that was erring on the side of caution, understanding that this is probably going to be a long series. So I do think we'll want to keep an eye on Zandalicini and see if she's available for Tuesday night, because both teams only used 7 players, and Maisha Hines-Allen played 11 minutes, and Natisha Heidemann played just over 11 minutes for the Lynx. Veronica Burton played 27 minutes for the Sun off the bench, and was a huge part of what they did. So I don't know if both coaches want to just use 7-player rotations for the length of this series. If they can get Ty Harris back on the Sun side, I'd fully expect her to be involved. I'm not totally certain on the severity of her ankle injury, but if you can get Zandalicini in there for the 10-ish minutes she normally plays and hit a 3 or 2, that was something that was missing from last night. And that doesn't necessarily guarantee that the game's going to be much different, but it's one more shooter that you have to go to. And if Chechi goes in there in the second quarter when it's kind of a scoring drought and makes a 3, that could spur the momentum for the Lynx offense. It's just, one more weapon to go to and feel pretty good about. And she's a veteran player, so they certainly were missing her presence, limited though as it is. So we'll see if she plays in game 2. But yeah, I think everyone needs to hit more shots. This is kind of the conclusion that we came to, just sort of at the end there. There's no great cheat code to unlock the Connecticut defense. You got what you saw last night, and I think what you saw was the Lynx still being able to generate some looks, even though it clearly wasn't an offensive masterpiece like it looked like against Phoenix. Just two very different defenses you're going after. So you want to win a championship, the shot making has to be there. I know it wasn't good enough on Sunday. And you just gotta, hope that your scorers find a way to get the ball in the net on Tuesday.
Awesome. Well, what are your game 2 predictions, or even for the rest of the series? I know you mentioned you think it'll go to 5 games.
It is going 5 for sure. And I now, of course, with the Sun winning game 1, I hope it at least goes 4, because I will be out in Connecticut and for games 3 and 4, which I'm very excited about. If it ends up being a Connecticut sweep, then I have some travel plans to figure out and cancel. Otherwise, I'm just in Uncasville for 3 additional days. So I hope we get as much basketball to watch as possible. Game 2, I will predict a Lynx win by 3 points. Maybe the just 73-70 exact same scoreline, but in the Lynx favor. I just think that's what these two teams are going to be. The Sun have gotten the better of the Lynx in these last couple seasons, but especially if you look at the 3 regular season games this year, one was very early in the season, way back in May. It was like the 4th game of the year for both teams. Went into overtime. That game was in Connecticut. The Sun win by 1. The only game in Minneapolis in the regular season was on the 4th of July. So again, before the Olympic break. That's the game that Fee left early in the 3rd quarter, and the Sun win by 5. Then the game in at Mohegan Sun on September 17th, which was the Bridget Carlton made one from almost deep, as we saw Mabrey hit one with 3 seconds left in the game to cap. There was like 4 lead changes in the last 14 seconds of that game, with the Lynx ultimately winning by 2. These teams play exciting basketball against each other, and it's just the way both play, I have a hard time seeing anyone blow out the other unless something goes really wrong. That's kind of what happened in the playoff series last year, where the Sun won game 1 by 30, I believe. And then the Lynx came back and they stole game 2 on the road and pushed it back to a decisive game 3 in Minneapolis, with the Sun ultimately winning that series, as we remember. But yeah, I think you're going to see probably 4 more games just like the one we watched. There are going to be a lot of lead changes. The biggest lead category, Sun 9 last night, Lynx 6 last night. I think that will likely stay in single digits for both teams. So yeah, I know all of the glitz and glamour are on the other side of the bracket, and I totally understand why. When you get a finals rematch in the semifinals, it's great, but hey, don't sleep on this matchup. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be high level defense. So for game 2, I'll say 73-70. I won't say who I think is gonna win the whole series. It's just gonna go 5, but I'll share that prediction ahead of game 5 in the hopes that we get one.
Awesome. Well, excited to hopefully see you in Connecticut. For the viewers that are watching on YouTube, that was my excited face. Breaking news. So yeah. I'll be talking to Terry about that offline. But I'm excited to see, another close game, see if Alyssa Thomas gets that triple-double. She has gotten quite a few of her career triple-doubles against Minnesota. And also excited to see if Marina Mabrey can keep raining down threes in the playoffs. She's made, I believe, 14 in 3 games in the playoffs. Yeah. And Terry, what are you expecting from the atmosphere in game 2? Like, is there another notch that the Minnesota fans can hit?
I think so. And that's not to say that it wasn't fantastic last night, and has been, all through the playoffs. They've been loud. The arena has been, the staff have done a great job. covering it in towels last night was a really cool one with Fee featured on it. So everyone has their rally towels. I don't know if we're actually calling them rally towels or what, but everyone's waving them and being loud. But sometimes the playoffs, it's hard to imagine that group being louder. But the playoffs can bring that out of a crowd, and I think we'll see if the Lynx string a few more made buckets together and give that crowd a reason to stay engaged and stay in it. Then you can ride that crowd's momentum, because it is a special place and the Lynx fans do a great job. And, where press row is in the Target Center is, it's sort of plopped right in there with the fans. So I'm still hearing it in my ears a little bit today, but I think that the challenge I'm issuing to Lynx fans is make my ears, ring a little bit more for even the next day. You have that permission to do that to me. So I think they'll be ready for game 2. It'll be a late one. I think 8:30 start time, local time after the Aces Liberty game. So a little bit later on a Tuesday night. So yeah, well, I'm sure they'll be charged up and ready to go. But yeah, they brought the noise in game 1. They certainly weren't part of the problem.
Well, definitely pack some earplugs, noise canceling
Yep.
headphones for both game 2 and your trip to Connecticut, because fans last series against Indiana got really loud in Uncasville. So definitely keep those in your bag.
For sure. Every time I've watched a Sun game on TV, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can hear the fans. So I'm very excited to get in there and spend some time with Sun fans. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Terry, for joining me. Where can the people find you and your work?
The nexthoops.com. Just go there and you can click on the link and you'll find what I've been cranking out for this playoff run. And then on Twitter, just at Terry Horstman. That's TerryHorstman. And Instagram's at Terrence Horstman. I wasn't able to get the same name across platforms back whenever we decided that these were going to be the 2 biggest social media platforms for the next 2 decades or whatever. So Terry Horstman on Twitter, Terrence Horstman on Instagram, and then just at the Next. Probably writing more stuff this week, I imagine. So
awesome. Well, thanks to our listeners for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Now go check out the Locked On NBA podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to tune in the rest of this week to hear from Howard, Gigi, and more from me as the WNBA playoffs continue. This episode is brought to you by Game Time.